Next, I'd like to introduce Dominic from our segment marketing team focused on IoT to talk about marketing and engagement and some of the ideas we've got about how you can engage with us. And then afterwards we'll go to the open panel session where we can talk more about this sort of stuff, but also other things that are coming through on Sam's feed and any other questions you might have. So over to Dom.
Thanks, Simon. I'm not sure if this... Excuse me a second, I'm just going to check this thing's working. Can you hear me okay with this mic?
Yeah.
Good. So, I have to apologise because I think Stephen of the mbed team was meant to be presenting this slot. He was unfortunately taken ill, so you've got a marketing guy instead. Hopefully it'll still be interesting. So my background is actually from the processor side of ARM's business. So I was working in the Cortex-M team, looking at low-power microcontrollers for radios and MCUs and sensors, and obviously very interested in Zach's comments about, is it really about the device? Not really. It's the data and the connecting the little data with the big data. This is absolutely true in the future, but I think the reason this is possible is that we have great partners like Freescale, NXP, TI, Scilabs that have these tiny MCUs that are low cost enough and low power enough that you can really put them in just about any device you can imagine. So this thing over here is a 2mm squared microcontroller. So this isn't an R&D project. This is a product you can buy now from distribution, which I think is pretty amazing. And when you consider the number of different applications that this could possibly go into, then you understand why this is a 32-bit processor connected to the internet. This then entails a whole load of kind of software complexity and security issues which necessitate things like mbed and sensor mode. And obviously connecting things to the internet or connecting embedded products is not new. We have a lot of Cortex-M parts out there today. Quite a lot of them are connected, but we think more of them are going to be connected in the future. So this is my background. This is why I'm really interested in mbed, because I think we've got huge potential for these kind of silicon products. And we only have a small amount of embedded C developers today, maybe 100, 200,000 embedded C developers. So I made a comment about Java ME earlier. Well, there's about 9 million Java developers. So an mbed itself is so much easier to use than kind of traditional approaches that this is, I think, really interesting in what they're doing. And I don't know how many, because we didn't really talk about this, but ARM's business is, well, we've got several divisions doing different things. One of them is processor licensing. So the microcontrollers are the result of microcontroller silicon vendors licensing ARM Cortex processors. We're quite successful in doing this. But even more interesting is the number of devices that they ship together. So ARM doesn't make the chips, we license the IP, but the silicon partners together shipped 8.7 billion of these devices last year. So these are really big numbers. And ARM's business model is, it's not just selling them a license to IP, it's also royalty based on the number of chips they ship. So it's really in ARM's interest to accelerate the number of different design-ins into Internet of Things opportunities. So ARM in its essence is not, it doesn't operate alone, it's very much a collaborative business. If you're developing anything, you don't just need hardware, you need software, you need operating systems. In the Internet of Things, you may need cloud service components. And ARM has the connected community, so we have over 1,000 contributors to this today. And what I really like about mbed is, in some ways there's definitely technical aspects to this, but mbed is really a single point of engagement where you can technically contribute some code or some examples. And it spans a whole load of different technology contributors, so right from cloud services, guys like Zyvler or Exada, who Karthik mentioned earlier on, all the way down to component vendors who may just have a simple sensor, for example, that then is connected by I2C to a microcontroller. So these guys are coming from very different worlds. But I think the theme of today really is that the Internet of Things is these worlds are colliding. And so for the embedded guy who's creating a device that then has to connect to the internet, they may not be experts in cloud services or the connectivity aspects of this, but mbed provides them a very neat way of connecting with this world. And likewise, embedded is very different from cellular or from desktop development. There's kind of a whole diverse range of different embedded components. If you're a Web 2 company or a cloud service company, how do you engage with all of these guys? And again, mbed is providing a standard way of doing that. And so, one of the ways it's doing that is by providing all these different building blocks. And I hope, for most of you here today, you can see a way for you to engage with mbed to address more of the developer community by providing components for the component database around one of these things. This image here, building the future, get it? It's the DeLorean. If you're doing a sensor, even this thing can't be programmed, you can still put libraries into mbed's component database. If you're doing cloud service components, you can put them as a software component in that database. If you're doing wireless, and we saw already today, u-blox have a module which is mbed enabled. Nordic have announced their Bluetooth Smart chip, which is now mbed enabled. It's becoming very, very easy for people that may not have expertise in embedded development to suddenly connect their product ideas up to the internet. And so, Stephen, who isn't here today, would be giving this part of the presentation. But I think fundamentally what we want is for you to be able to engage with mbed, to be engaged with ARM very quickly and easily. So mbed support@mbed.org is the right email address for carrying on that engagement. But primarily, the way you get connected with mbed, you can register an account. You then get a homepage on mbed.org. And within that, you can have software libraries, example code, and if you've got a hardware component, your component will be featured on the component database. And it then becomes very easy for a developer to simply go on the component database, look for what they want, click that, and import the library code to support it. So this doesn't have to be a hardware component. I think Xively is a nice example. So Xively approached Simon, I think was that March or May, earlier this year, spring. It's been a long year. But they were providing cloud services but wanted to connect with embedded developers. I think this is a really good use case because they got tremendous pickup working with ARM on mbed, tremendous pickup in the press for doing what they were doing. The Wall Street Journal ran an article on it. Gigarom interviewed Simon Segars, the CEO of ARM, I think it was last week, and Xively was mentioned in that context as well. So obviously this is a really good way of engaging with ARM and engaging with the Internet of Things drive ARM has with ARM mbed. And in case it hasn't been clear already today, mbed is our primary IoT development platform. This is something that ARM is investing in. So the homepage on mbed.org, so I've used the Xada example here. Obviously this is a way for you to feature your company and reference your code and any activity you've got going on to anyone who's developing on mbed.org. And obviously, if you're a hardware vendor, if you're developing a board, and so u-blox might be an example of this. Chris mentioned earlier on the HDK and the firmware and schematics that you can get to create an mbed-enabled board. Similarly, you can register a company account, you can get your homepage, you download the HDK, which provides firmware for the SimSys app support for that particular target. Just checking I get this right, because I'm not the engineer. And then you'll appear on the platforms page when you request it. And so, again, if someone's using your board and they plug it into mbed, they can quickly find the right support on the web page. And I mentioned u-blox, and so obviously, u-blox are providing a module with their cellular modem and mbed. And this is where the interesting multiplier of ecosystem happens. So NXP obviously are a lead partner in terms of microcontrollers for mbed, and they got selected to be in this module not because they were directly in contact with u-blox necessarily, but because they had the mbed SDK ported to their microcontrollers. So because they're on mbed, it became an obvious choice for u-blox to use in that module. Obviously Sprinter keen on things like this because it's something that can be certified for use on the network. So if developers want to create M2M solutions that are certified for the network, having a single module is exactly what they're looking for. And then for Xydely, they want to provide cloud services for any kind of connected device. And if it's on a cellular network, great, the more the merrier. So these are companies that wouldn't necessarily have otherwise got in touch with each other or had a natural network that mbed's providing for them. And so finally the developers, and Simon mentioned this earlier, so we can't make public the list of developers who are using mbed today, but it's around 200 kind of brand name OEMs from pharmaceutical, automotive. The only one that I've seen public yet, and believe me, I'm trying to get more of them public, is Disney Research. And you see all these logos that behind the users of mbed and wonder what they're up to. So Disney Research, they created a haptic feedback prototype. So I don't know if you've seen the Xbox Kinect, so you're waving your hands in the air. They created a prototype that basically shoots air at your hands so you connect with the game. A really interesting prototype. But the point is, this is just one point out of 200 different companies, and we know they're doing cool stuff and we're working to get it public. But yeah, so the developers are not just from Kickstarter or IoT entrepreneurs, although they're definitely a target. They're also brand name OEMs who may not have embedded electronics as their primary purpose, but are starting to integrate that stuff. And so that mbed's definitely being used broadly there, and we're looking forward to revealing some of this kind of use cases in the future. So how you can engage with developers, there's also the concept of setting up teams. So obviously mbed has a big user community, an active user community, who are busy creating libraries and support components out there. If you're the vendor of some of these components, you can create a virtual team and actually harness some of this community energy to support your products. And to create a team, you can go on, I think do you email us or use the website? Use the website, mbed.org/teams to set up that team and harness some of this energy of the community using mbed today. And there's a whole load of, obviously ARM does a whole load of co-marketing along with its partners. We've got a day on Thursday focused on creating connected products, and Simon's there, Zach's there. It's probably the first time they've seen this slide. Sorry about the picture I've chosen, Simon. And then Matt Webb from Berg is also there. This is just a screen grab from a video he did. I'm sorry, I know you're too busy to send me a photo. But, so anyway, so this would be very cool for anyone who wants to create connected products, and the focus is really product innovation, not just from the board level, but also how do these things interact with people. And Berg, who are a pretty cool product design company, have their CEO coming to give the first talk there. So that's on Thursday, and you're definitely invited to do that. If you wish, it's free to attend. I suppose my point here is ARM attends trade shows across the world in various different markets, and part of our co-marketing strategy is promoting any interesting solution. So our CEO mentioned Xydely in a briefing this morning as an Internet of Things example. We're always keen to get more examples that we can provide as proof points in the market. So these are the kind of network effects I think that are good for everyone and good opportunities to get involved. Okay, so that's all I've got for this presentation. So, I mean, the theory here is, as Simon showed in his earlier presentation on smartphone apps, we're providing an ecosystem, we're providing the components for people to create these connected devices, and it's pretty exciting stuff. And I'm really happy to have been invited along today. I know the mbed team are a dedicated bunch of smart folks, and I think I'm quite optimistic about the future. Thanks very much.